Welcome back to another episode of Don't Waste the Chaos. Today, we're talking about a tough topic, but one that has to be talked about. It must be discussed if you are focused on being a business owner with integrity. And I think a lot of us are, right? We want to run things correctly or right by people. But what if the real mark of strong leadership isn't how fast you grow, but how well you care for your team when your growth slows? This can happen when your pipeline isn't full. This can happen when you've decided to close down an area of your business and focus all of your efforts in another area. This can happen when you decide that one location isn't serving you anymore. All of these things can happen when growth slows and we're getting more intentional. So many of us want to focus on growth and scalability and expansion. And I'm no different. I want to do the same thing. But when it's time to refine, when it's time to pivot, when it's time to shift, then who are you and how are you showing up? And that's exactly what we're talking about today. And honestly, I just see so much data out there around layoffs. And every time I see a large corporation announcing another layoff, I think to myself, like, I wonder how that's being handled. I wonder how the employees are being communicated to. I wonder what tools and resources they are being offered on their way out. I wonder how the culture remains for those who are staying. I wonder how those employees who are staying, if they're picking up more work or if things are being right-sized. There's just all these questions that come up in my mind. And mostly that's because I've done this before. And I also have just seen it done unwell so many times. Most individuals don't do it. Business owners, leaders don't do it at the right time. And then they do it in a panic because things are really, really hurting. And so I just today want to dig into this concept of right sizing versus layoffs, what that looks like, and then how you can do this better in your organization, but also like how you can and should be thinking it through prior to it. So we're going to get into it. Let me just start by laying this framework. Layoffs come from panic most times. Right sizing comes from stewardship, stewarding your business. And so we don't want to ever operate out of an emotional pocket in our business. We want to operate out of intentionality. This isn't just about headcount. It's about stewarding your team's energy wisely. And before I get further along, I'm going to say this. I launched this podcast in January of 24. It was the last week of January in 2024. And so if you're listening to this in the summer of 25, which is when this episode is launching, I have done a couple of things. The first thing that I did was say, I want to put out extremely valuable and relevant and data-backed content. And that's not changing. But because of that, I spent a ton of time writing out all of the content for my podcast. So that way, when I would record, I'd have it all written out. I essentially have a script. And that was fine and good when I first launched because my intention was to only have this on Spotify and on Apple and not utilize video. And from the very beginning, I've been working with a podcast production company out of Nashville. They have been a huge gift to me to get this up and off the ground. And from the very beginning, the owner of that organization was like, Kerri, shoot the videos. Shoot them bad. Shoot them while you're going over your script, but shoot the freaking videos because you're going to wish, a year from now, 2 years from now, when you're ready to do this differently, you're going to wish that you had some videos already and a following and all of that. So for the last year and a half, I've been shooting the videos. And then, we got big enough on Spotify that the videos have been on Spotify as well. And they've been on YouTube. And we've really grown on YouTube. If you don't follow us on YouTube, it's just at Kerri M. Roberts. You're missing out. Honestly, we've got our podcast, which is, of course, this show, Don't Waste the Chaos. And then we've got From Kerri's Chair, we've got all of the resources and partners that I have well vetted. And if you know me, I am a passionate person. I will not promote something I don't fully believe in. And so I've got all of that out there. And then I've also got some videos I've put out about how I use AI in my business and things like that. And so my YouTube channel has really been blowing up. We get tens of thousands of new views a month. YouTube's serving up our content. Our shorts are super good. I mean, that's going really, really well, but it's been kind of driving me a little nuts because my YouTube channel, you can see that I'm using a script. And while the podcast platform that I utilize, which is Riverside FM, it's so good, I can do a teleprompter on that. And I do, but you can tell that I'm reading. And then it came out that we can do eye correcting. And if you've been following my channel closely, you'll see that we tried that. We tried to where you can correct your eyes. And if you know me or if you're watching this video right now, I have very deep, what I've been called multiple times, poop brown eyes, very deep, rich brown eyes. And I love that about myself. Now, I love looking at a blue-eyed or a green-eyed or a hazel-eyed person, but I like the color of my eyes. And in the AI correction, it was kind of modifying them a little bit. It was essentially laying over somebody else's eyes over me or a photo. Every time that I would look down or read, it would lay these other eyes over me to keep my eye contact. But I just felt like when I was watching my own videos back, I was just like, that's not me. And authenticity is a huge part of my brand, my personal brand. I am super transparent. And many people would call me blunt. I'm just matter of fact. I'm on the spectrum. This is just the way that I show up. And so some things started to feel incongruent. I felt like, I want to show up with excellence. That means my videos weren't looking the exact way I wanted them to look. And I'm still evolving. I'm still growing. I actually want to put in my farmhouse, I want to put a podcast studio because right now I'm sitting, as you can see, in my office. This is where I freaking live, the majority of my days. But I want to put together a podcast studio so I can have guests in person and we can, have the like hanging mics instead of my desk Yeti and all of this. I have things that I want to do to grow, but I haven't monetized this podcast yet. So if you're listening, it's free. Right? Like you don't have to pay to subscribe. I don't have paid sponsorships right now. In general, I've literally had very, very minimal paid sponsorships. I do some sponsor roles that are like affiliate marketing that I have. Again, products and brands that I know, like, and trust to use myself. But other than that, I'm promoting my business, which is my advisory firm, Salt Line Advisors. I'm promoting my book, The HR Easy Button. And then I'm just trying to grow because eventually I want to serve up ads that will monetize me on YouTube and on Instagram and all that. But I haven't done that yet. And so all I've got really is that I've got good, authentic content, but I wanted it to look better. So as if you're listening to this episode on layoffs and right sizing your workforce, this is the first time that I did not prepare a script. And it feels a little wild for me. I am such a detail-oriented, fact-based, data-driven, live in a spreadsheet kind of gal that I would write those scripts, I would draft those because I wanted to make sure that I brought a ton of value to you, the listener, on every single episode. And I mean, sure, I'd riff every now and again, or, I'd have my speaking point and then something would hit my heart or pop up and, I would add on to it. But by and large, it was a script I'd written out. And I have bullet points for this episode, and it's got me feeling some type of way. It's got me feeling kind of wild. And when I'm doing interviews with people, I have no problem bantering and going back and forth. It's just for these solo episodes, I've really been like on track. So if you're listening today, like, thanks for being a part of this. One way that you can help me out on this podcast is just to please subscribe or follow. I'd love it if you do it on all Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. That would be a monstrosity of a help to me. And then also leaving me a review would be a huge help to me. And, of course, the ultimate is if you find me to be valuable, have me in to speak to your organization. Order a copy of my book on Amazon or saltlineadvisors.com/book one, or do business with me from an HR consulting and advisory firm perspective. Any of those are like huge, but seriously, if you just subscribe to my podcast channel and follow, maybe comment a meaningful comment every once in a while or leave me a review, it's huge. It's huge. For somebody who's been showing up every single week for a year and a half and watching this grow, it literally makes me feel a little misty. It touches me in the heart. And people will reach out and say like, hey, I was listening to your most recent episode and they want to talk about it. And I want to stop and say, you were? Thank you. I'm so glad it's bringing you value. So Thanks for being here. And also, congratulations to you and to me for being a part of this, what feels like an inaugural episode where I didn't script it all out. I'm just going to go off the cuff. And you know what? After 20 years in HR, I have some shit to say. So we're going to get into it. So let's get into it right now. Understand what right sizing really means. So I'm not saying you have to avoid layoffs. There are tons of times in the life cycle of a business where you need to be evaluating your workforce and determining if you've got the right people in the right seats on the bus, if you're selling products and services that you can truly deliver on at the highest level. And if you're not, shutting that down. If you're showing up in commercial property that you don't need, closing that down. Does that remove your need for a front desk person? Probably we would eliminate that role or repurpose that person. So there's a ton of times where we need to eliminate positions. So hear me on that. I'm not a person who's like, you hired them, so you're stuck. No, you're a business owner. You've got to pivot. Right sizing does not mean cutting people to boost profits all of the time. It's about aligning your resources with what your business actually needs right now. Let me give you a little stat here that I saw. 73% of small businesses that implemented right sizing versus reactive layoffs reported higher employee retention 6 months later. Of course, SHRM put that out, which is the Society of Human Resource Management. But of course, if you're focused on right sizing versus layoffs, you're going to have higher employee retention, not because you're not cutting people, but because the way you are running your business is a much more intentional way from the start. So we need to know what it is we actually need. And the frustrating thing for me when I talk to clients or when I've been in organizations in the past is most organizations, I say most because that's reality. I've only been at one organization that I feel like was really good at workforce planning. And even then, it was hard. Workforce planning is hard. That's one of the first tasks that I ever did for this. I worked for a distribution company that was focused on gun parts and ammunition and shooting sports and hunting supplies and all of that. And I started out in HR there, actually. And one of my responsibilities after, I think it was my first year there, was to sit in on workforce planning meetings in the logistics department. And then eventually I started running those. And by eventually, I mean after my first meeting, they were like, "You're up, kid. You start running this." We had a spreadsheet, and essentially we took everything that was coming in from our product receivables, because we were distribution, we weren't creating the products. So everything that was coming in and what it looked like to stock those, and then what it looked like to pull those out of stock and get those through the line, boxed, and then out the door. So taking a look at trend data for orders from the call center that we had also in-house. So we were looking at all of this data and determining how many people do we need from a team lead perspective, supervisor perspective, to a receivables, to a stocker, to a shipper, to a truck loader. How many of each of those roles do we need at any given time? And then also per shift. That would help us determine, do we have the right amount of staff? Now, I know that seems complicated, but how in the hell are you running your business if you don't actually do that? Genuinely. If you're getting hit in the gut a little bit right now, let's say that you're a construction firm and you're listening to this and you've never taken a look at how many average jobs that you all do in a year in any given season. Because, I live in the Midwest, so spring is going to be a little tougher because it's a rainy season, and then summer, dry and hot. Are we working full time during that? Fall, best, winter? What can we do inside? Because if we've got snow or, what's that look like? So truly taking a look at the seasonality of your business, and then based on historic data and based on what you're going to be investing in marketing, if any, what are you projecting? And then how many people do you need to be able to get that workload done? If you're not doing it to that level, I would say you are not right sizing your business. Therefore, you are at a risk to be one of these folks that I'm saying that are not being intentional. The seasons of your business are important. There's also seasons of your business, meaning sometimes you're going to hire more. Sometimes you need to reevaluate. So take a look at the seasonality when it comes to, winter, fall, spring, summer, but then also look at, if you live in a college town, do you usually say we want to really focus our hiring needs in March because then over the summer, the seasonality in that way. When do you do strategic planning? When do you do budgeting? When does your evaluation process look like? And so then when would you be right sizing? So that's a seasonality of your business as well. There's just a lot to look at here. And I want to go back to the question I asked at the beginning. What if the real mark of strong leadership isn't how fast you grow, but how well you care for your team when the growth slows? But if you're not taking a look at all of this, do you even know when your growth slows? Are you just looking at the bottom line or top line rev, or what are you doing to measure and make sure that you're being a good steward with your resources? Right sizing is not cutting people just to boost your profit. It's really being a good steward with those resources. So here's some key evaluation filters that I would recommend. When you're thinking about hiring a position, or when you're looking at a position that's maybe performing, but you're not getting an ROI, or not performing, is this role critical to your revenue, to your operations, or client delivery today? And this is something that I'm looking at in my own business right now. I know I have two crucial internal roles that I need. I'm really serious about my marketing and branding. So I've got somebody that says grace over that. And then I need someone to support me from an administration perspective. So someone that does my calendaring, someone that does my client invoicing, my client onboarding, my contracting, scheduling the podcast guest, scheduling me on other podcasts, like things like that. So those are two mission critical to me. And then I also outsource some finance and accounting pieces. We do payroll in-house, but we outsource some finance and accounting. I actually want to bring that in-house eventually, but right now it's external. And then we've got podcast production external. I'd like to bring that in-house someday too. But what do I need right now? I need administrative support, seriously. And then I need my marketing and branding. I want to move into business development. I've been using my personal network for a long time and it's worked out pretty well. But if I really want to scale and become a true thought leader outside of my geographic location, I'm going to need business development. But if I don't have those critical pieces first, I'm not ready to move forward. What do I need for client delivery today? What do I need for operations today? What do I need to hit my revenue goals today? And then are we duplicating efforts anywhere, or are we underutilizing skill sets anywhere? So I want you to think through those. That is right sizing your business. It's true workforce planning. And it's complex, but there are people out there that can help you with this. And really, we get so into the doing in our business that it just takes a day or two, just a day or two to pull back, maybe have a little team retreat if you've got leaders. If you don't, I sit down with AI a lot of days. And I also have consultants that I work with outside of my firm that can help me from a coaching perspective, business coaching and planning. And I just spend a little bit of time. You'll be amazed at what that day or two can do for you. And then the clarity and the rocket fuel that gives your business. So I really want you to dig in to workforce planning so you can right size your business. But let's step forward. So let's say we do identify that we want to shut down a location. We want to shut down a department. We want to sell our business, or we just want to close down our business because we're not meeting the profitability and we're going to move as a business owner in a different direction. Let's talk about how to have hard conversations with clarity and compassion. First of all, having the conversations is crucial. So many of us want to keep it all inside. There might be team members that can help you troubleshoot this. There might be team members that you can be very confidentially clear and candid with. And they might say, you know what? I've actually been thinking about doing X, Y, and Z anyway. So maybe I back off on my hours, or I'm working full time, but I'd actually like to go part time. I just thought you needed me. Like, the transparency is really powerful. When we treat people like cogs in a wheel, we don't give them enough dignity to speak back into our business in this way. And you know what? Maybe you are going to hurt them. Maybe it is going to be the hard conversation, but most generally, a person's not going to want you to pay them for work that isn't value added to your business and that you're constantly grinding over or stressing over. Most people don't want to sit in that seat or they're a burden to you. That is most generally not what people want to do. Right sizing is not a spreadsheet, even though we're going to use spreadsheets to evaluate all of this. It's not just a spreadsheet. It is truly a soul check. What are we bringing to the table to our clients and our business? And is this right and good and in alignment with where I am as the owner, where we're trying to go, where our niche is best served? You need to do a gut check. We don't want to blindside people. We need to avoid, in my opinion, Passive language like restructuring. I was actually just talking to the president of a large institution the other day, and she said, we've just got tough budgetary times. Honestly, this is frustrating to me because she literally needs to hire me to do this, but she tells me that they're having tough financial times. And so she can't hire me. And what they're going to do instead is use people who are not skilled in this area, workforce planning, restructuring, and how to truly treat people, the people management aspect. So instead, they're going to take a look at all of it. And then they're going to, under the guise of restructuring, terminate a bunch of people. And when she said that, I was like, well, I have done that for a 20,000 person organization. That's just my largest example. I've done it at multiple organizations. I've literally flown to another state the week before Christmas to close down an office and do a reduction in force. I mean, like, I've done some hard things. And I was like, I would recommend that you use me before that. And she said, well, maybe after I put my plan together, we'll grab coffee. That tells me she just wants free consulting. And you know what? You're going to get what you pay for on that. If you just want to grab coffee with me, first of all, I got to be honest, I'm probably going to decline because I can't meet up with you without giving you a ton of value. So really, I'd rather you value my services and my time, and then I can bring it for you and really help you. And if you only want to pay me on an hourly rate, that's fine. But if you're a business owner and you don't understand any of this, but then you think you're going to reduce your force and then you're just going to call it restructuring, be freaking honest with yourself and others. You're not being a person with integrity. I had another business, a construction firm that I was working with, and they had a person that wasn't performing. And they said, what I'd like to do? I'd like to just say we're no longer going to have this role in the organization. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's one way to do it. Are we never going to have this role in the organization? Is it momentary? Is it for 3 months? Do you know that you probably need this role in the organization? If you had somebody that was performing as a rock star in this role, would you continue with it? Then be honest. Document the performance and eliminate the person. This is not due to restructuring. This is due to your lack of performance. And if you aren't documenting or having those crucial conversations, that's a you problem, but that doesn't mean that you should stretch the truth in any way, shape, or form. And mind you, if that person decides to get an attorney and say it was a wrongful termination suit because they're performing very well, they think, and you've just cut them due to restructuring and they want to know why them, and they're filing a wrongful termination suit, you're going to have to get real then anyway. Well, here the person wasn't performing and we had this conversation, but we didn't document it. And then the supervisor had this conversation and then this person didn't show up for work for a few days, but we don't have an accountability process for that or good policies or good tracking. So here's all of this mess. You're just going to look like a messy business owner. At the end of the day, you're really not doing anything wrong by terminating the person. You just didn't document it correctly, so you called it something different. Just be honest. Avoid that passive language like restructuring if it has to do with performance. If it does have to do with restructuring, map out exactly why. But just so you know, if you're eliminating some titles, if you put people back in those titles, I'd say within that same year, you're doing it wrong. You're communicating it in a wrong way outside of integrity. You need to make sure the human side of your brand really shows up and is present in this. I read a statistic on Career Art that said 61 of employees said they'd be more likely to recommend a company that handled layoffs with transparency and with empathy. The people want the truth. Is it going to hurt them? Yes. Are they going to maybe make a TikTok about how the fact that they got laid off? Sure. But if you do it with integrity, I promise you, they will 9 times out of 10 say it was painful, but they handled me really well. And you know what? One person's going to be pissy about it and inaccurate and smear you maybe a little bit. And maybe you ought to put some paperwork in place on their way out if you offer them a severance that says don't do that. And then you can call them on it legally if you even want to, if that would be advantageous. Sometimes we just need to let people feel their feelings. If you decide to eliminate people, let's just say the kind thing, but say the truth. This isn't a reflection of your worth. It's about where the business is at right now. If you truly just own that, it's not going to make the person be like, oh, good, we're failing as a business, so I'm the one who gets let go. I'm not saying they're going to love it, but you're being honest with them. It will be easier for them to process later. We didn't come to this decision lightly. We want to do it the right way. So what is the right way? What are some of the things that you could do to make it the right way, I'd say offer transitional support, resume help, offer internal references, LinkedIn recommendations, and severance where possible. Rule of thumb, I'll just throw it out there. I would do at least 1 week of severance for every 1 year the person's at the organization. Now, if it's a higher level person, that's negotiable. If you are a nonprofit and you rely on donors, think about this. Would you be comfortable telling a donor, we didn't plan correctly as an organization, so we had to lay this person off, but we paid them 6 months of their salary because we didn't plan well as an organization, and now we have to, hire another person to do X, Y, and Z, so we need more money from you. Just think through that conversation. And that might make you right size your severance package too. We've got to be real with where we're at. We don't want to put ourselves at risk. We also want to treat people kindly. It's a balance. One of the things I wanted to mention, if you go to saltlightadvisors.com/, let's see, layoff checklist, I've got a resource that I've got out there, and it's got like before the meeting, during the meeting, and after the meeting on how to, how to prepare, what to say during the meeting, and then the steps you need to take after the meeting. So saltlightadvisors.com/layoff checklist to get that free resource for you. And then that'll also give you access to my weekly email. And I give out a ton of free resources on that as well. But I highly recommend you go check that out. It's a free guide. It's just a 1-pager to help you walk through this process. So let's talk about transparent communication for a minute. And really, this part is a leadership superpower. So many people think, I've worked for organizations that have kept their goals quiet, their even top line revenue quiet, and then also their plans quiet. And it's really hard for an employee to attach to the purpose of your organization if you're not sharing anything with them. The number one killer of morale isn't change, it's silence. So a lot of us think like, oh, change fatigue and all of that. And that is a thing. You can't be constantly changing. I'm actually trying to streamline my personal organization right now, so we sit still for a minute. But if you constantly are changing, but you're telling the why behind it, it's received a lot better. If you're constantly whipping with the wind, including laying people off or restructuring, but you don't explain the why, then that is a morale killer. The number one killer of morale is not change, it's silence. You need to talk early and talk often, even if you don't have all of the answers. Now, I'm not saying ramble off at the mouth, and I'm not saying say things that aren't helpful. I highly recommend you work with a consultant or either on the HR side or maybe the marketing side or the legal side to help you navigate this. But if someone tells you, don't tell anyone till you've got it 100% down, and then absolutely take them off their rocker with this information, that person's leading you astray. So here's kind of a general framework that I recommend. You need to share what we know, what we're considering, and when we'll update you next. It's that simple. Here's what we know. This department is underperforming and we're evaluating it. What are some of the things we're considering? We're considering consolidation. We're considering eliminating the department. We're considering reinvigorating our marketing efforts to grow this department. And so here's what we're looking at. Here's what we know about what the data is saying. And then we are going to update you next on this. Teams who feel like they're in the loop, based on some data I saw from McKinsey during organizational changes, were 3.5 times more likely to stay engaged. You might think like, oh, I'm going to create a bunch of chaos and drama. You are a little bit of that. Yes, people are going to have feelings about it. They're humans. You have to let them have feelings. You're having feelings about it. You have to let them have the feelings, but they're 3.5 times more likely to stay engaged if they feel like they're in the loop. And especially if you truly are restructuring and you give these people like, hey, if we consolidate departments, here's going to be some opportunities, or point them to your current job opportunities, give them a heads up. This is a way that you can include employees in cost savings before reducing staff. So if you share, how can we protect these jobs while staying lean? Your employees might innovate. They might actually come forward and say, here's where a ton of waste is at. Or an employee might come forward and say, I'm in this department, but I actually could do X, Y, and Z. I've just never done that before. Here's a way that we can improve this. Or you know what? I was wanting to step out anyway, but I'm here because I'm loyal to you, my department manager or the owner of this organization. But I was really wanting to move on anyway. Or, I had a baby and I want to stay at home, but I felt obligated, whatever. Like, include your employees in the cost savings ideas before reducing staff. I know that's counterintuitive to what a lot of people would say, but to me, transparency is best. If people can't handle that and they're emotionally immature, you hired the wrong person anyway. If you are a large organization, I get it. If you're publicly traded, there's shareholders involved, like there's some nuance, but I would still say following that framework that I offered, sharing what you know, what you're considering, and when they'll be updated next is still the right move. Right sizing can actually be a growth strategy. Lean doesn't have to mean weak. Lean means focused, and great companies right size before they are forced to. So your brand's integrity actually grows when you lead people with purpose and not with panic. And if this is resonating with you at all, and you're like, I know that something needs to shift in my business, you are correct. Whatever it is, you're correct. If you're feeling frustration with the way something's going, or if you're feeling this itchiness, like something needs to change, you're likely correct. If you're the leader or you're the small business owner, these are conversations that you need to be having, whether it's with your confidant, your consultant, your coach, your leadership team, your CFO, or your, outsourced finance person. With AI, take your data, put it into AI, say that you're feeling these feelings and, help me analyze the data. There's a lot of different things that you can do to walk through this. And you know what? At the end of the day, it might just be that you need a freaking hobby as a business owner, or it might be that you aren't performing and it's time to change that. You want to be the kind of leader who is leading their business with integrity. I know you do. You want to be the kind of business owner and leader who's truly leveling up as a person. You want to see your people as partners and not expenses, not cogs in the wheel. You want to be the type of leader that leads change with courageous clarity. I say courageous instead of confidence because this is hard work. And if you haven't done it before, you're not confident in how this is going to go, but you can show up with courage. You want to be the kind of leader that refuses to buy into the lie that you want to grow at all costs. We are not just building businesses here, we're building legacies, and we want to do it wisely. Business looks different than it used to. It certainly does for me. And so this is the type of leader that I want to be. If this is the type of leader that you want to be, go be it. I would love for you to share this with another leader that might resonate with this, or an HR leader, or a business owner. Someone in your circle is facing this right now, even if it's not you. Send this to them so they don't have to do it alone. And again, I mentioned I'd love it. That wasn't a guilt trip. I'm just being honest where I'm at. And this episode's kind of a pivot for me. I'd love it if you'd subscribe on YouTube or Apple or Spotify, or really all of them, because we're just getting started. I'd love it if you would hit subscribe so that way you can stay focused on things that blend business and people and purpose, because that's what I'm doing. Lastly, I want to say, we are really focused on our collectives right now, which are our membership offerings. So in my business, we've got fractional opportunities, which is like truly outsourced HR. We have got project-based work, and then we have our collectives, which are our memberships. And I've got two that I want to mention to you. One is HR in a Box. This is for small to mid-sized business owners that are kind of doing HR alone or DIYing HR or not really doing HR at all. We're going to meet once a month together, and I will share some teaching. I'll share some mindset. I'll share templates and resources that go along with the construct that we're teaching for that day of my 13 foundational HR areas. And then you'll have access to me and my team via a chat feature inside of our membership platform. And it's the most affordable way to work with us. Now, I would argue that putting a great HR consultant alongside of you is going to bring an ROI to your business. I know that for a fact. I've seen it with every single client that I've worked with over the last 2.5 years. But if you're not there yet, or you're small and you're just dipping your toe, start an HR in a Box. It's perfect. Not to mention it helps you with some networking with some other small business owners who are in the same spot as you. And we all know leadership is isolating, so it's a great place to be. We've also got the circle, which is focused on women who are focused on growth and expansion in their life with that faith angle. Because if you know me, I'm a Jesus girl. So if you're a female, I'd recommend that you check out the circle. So that is it for today, folks. And if you've stuck with us through this entire episode, I know it's because you're really, really thinking mindfully and intentionally about how you run your business, how you either lead or how you actually own your business or show up as the CEO or a department leader or someone who mentors others. And I'm grateful for you. There's so many of us who are navigating this area of leadership and ownership haphazardly. We're working in our business and not taking the time to work on our business. So kudos to you for listening to this episode and walking through it. And again, if you want that layoff resource guide, we'll link it in the show notes, saltandlightadvisors.com/layoff checklist to help. And if we can be of any service to you at all in my firm, you can reach out to hi@saltandlightadvisors.com. Folks, leading people and making sure that we're being good stewards with our resources, right sizing our business can feel like chaos, but this work is worth it. So don't waste the chaos, embrace it. Till next time.